Hello. Hello. Right, let's see if I can bring this into action. Hello, everyone. Oh, I hope you didn't see that. I hope you weren't peeping. Welcome over to YouTube. A lot of my why is that? It just needs to be down a bit. There's still I've still got some work to do on this. Okay, I've still got some work to do. Lawrence DK just followed me on Twitch. That's what was popping up there. So hello and welcome. It's lovely. I'm going to change this camera. I don't like it how it is. I'm going to put it back up high. Hopefully you can hear me all right, and you can see me all right. Just okay. I still got some. Yeah, I sound all right. I've got a new chat window, so hopefully I'll be able to interact with you as we go along. We've had a fantastic afternoon streaming on Twitch this afternoon, and I was just waiting. Oh, that was the other thing that I wanted to take off. Oh, no, that got. Yeah, and we had a really good afternoon of streaming, and this afternoon with this evening would normally be our Mithras game, but one of the players can't make it tonight. So, and we have this this rule. Well, it's not. It's an unspoken rule. We decided a long time ago that we didn't want to play with people missing. And we accept that that might mean that it might be a while before we play again, etc., etc. But we're fine about that, you know. And the important thing is to have everybody together. And so I thought, oh, let's do one of these streams. But I think in future, I think I'm going to move them to a Monday night and try to hit a regular slot with them. So for people who know that I'm now part-time at work due to illness and recovering, and I never feel like streaming games on a Monday night, either after or, you know, after the day or during the day, because I stream so much on the Saturday and Sunday. And so I thought this might be a nice alternative. Streaming live on YouTube on a Monday. I will edit this down, and so it's just sort of like the bit of me talking about the books or whatever I want to talk about. I've got some ideas about an RPG show or something like that. Maybe even get some other people on to chat and things like that. So yeah, I've got some really nice ideas about it. So hopefully you'll come to love those, come to love them. Yeah, I'm actually streaming from OBS at the moment. There's a wonderful, when I'm editing videos and things like that, I normally use my iMac, which is just sort of like here. And it's really difficult to stream from OBS on that one. But there's a wonderful software called Ecamm that is made for the iMacs that I'm really looking forward to use. I need to build up some revenue first to actually purchase it. So I'm using OBS on my PC at the moment to sort of like stream to you tonight. So just to remind you that this first bit will be removed, and it will focus on the second bit, which is all about the books that I have. And looking back, a bit of reminiscing. And just before I came on, I in between my Elder Scrolls Online streaming finishing and this one starting, I had a wonderful comment on last week's contribution, And it was a lovely comment, because I'm never too sure whether or not these are providing value or not. I never know whether or not people would be interested in seeing these things or not interesting. Anyway, there was a lovely comment that started off by saying, it's fun to hear your remembrances of the AD&D tomes. And then they finished off by saying, looking forward to more in this series, which I thought, I'll take that. I thought, I'm taking that. Let's take that and run with it. I thought that, you know, this is a nice opportunity. We had a wonderful discussion in the Twitch chat about the difference between YouTube and Twitch, and what's happening to Twitch and what's happening to YouTube. And I was just in another person's streams called Axiom Runner, who actually knows Harris Heller, who, you know, sort of like made the move from Twitch to YouTube and lost thousands. And he actually knows him sort of like personally, which was really interesting what he was saying. And I think there's always that dynamic discussion about which is better. And my philosophy at the moment is very much, I think they both bring two unique ideas. And just the same as I use Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, I use YouTube, I use Twitch, I'm that sort of person that has a finger in every single pie, because I never know. I like to have my finger in every single pie, because I never know which one is going to be my favorite, which is apple pie, you know. And so I like to keep my finger in all the pies. And I think there's a big difference between Twitch and YouTube. I think there's a huge difference between them. And I think both of them bring something quite unique to the actual the setup and what actually happens. I think what I'm going to have to do eventually is set up a completely new scene collection for YouTube. I've got a different profile for YouTube at the moment, but not a different scene collection. And I think I probably need to work on that. So when I click over, for example, I'm still seeing the channel points, the activity feed from Twitch rather than from YouTube, and things like that. So there's a bit of work. There's a bit of work still to do, but that's absolutely fine. So yeah, so in today's episode, I wanted to take you back to really where it all began. And we looked at the Player's Handbook, PHB, and we also looked at Unearthed Arcana as well. And I found some things when I was clearing out the other day, and I thought, wow, I can't believe I've actually still got that. And I put it together, and I thought, right, I'm going to talk about it on the next episode. So, of D&D books. And I have to say, you might be slightly disappointed with this next bit, because this next bit is not a D&D book. But I actually want to take you back to where my journey with D&D first ever started. And I have to say that I'm a bit embarrassed by the state of these. If I knew I was going to be looking back on them, I would have, you know, kept them in better condition. So anyway, here it is. This is what started my journey into D&D. This was it, into role playing and everything. This is where it started. It came in a box set. I no longer have the box. and you probably see here there's 2 punch hole marks because I actually ended up putting it in an A4 ring binder. But this is where it started. This was my first ever Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game. And without this, I wouldn't be where I am today at all. I would be somewhere completely different to do with role-playing, etc. And although I don't have the box, I do have the accompanying module that came with it, which was the Keep on the Borderlands, which had the infamous Caves of Chaos in it. So let me give you a bit of background. So the person who's responsible for getting me into Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games is sadly not here anymore. He actually died. But he was a boyfriend of my sister, my older sister, and he came round and was telling me about this wonderful game that he played. And I was immediately captivated by the idea of it. And you have to understand that up to that point, I had really enjoyed reading books. And my first ever book that I remember reading was The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper. And I'd gone to a library with my mom, and my mom had said to the librarian, he doesn't read, give him something that's going to make him enjoy reading. And she gave me The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper, and I loved it. And from there, I really got into fantasy fiction. And I went on, I read The Hobbit. I think it was called The Wizards of Brisingamen, but I'm not too sure. I read those. I read The Lord of the Rings by taking the books out the library. So we used to go to the library, get the book out and read it. I went through the whole the Belgrade series and read all about the Pawn of Prophecy, etc., etc. So I was really into fantasy fiction and really saw it as a bit of an escapism from school, which I didn't like, wasn't a pleasant experience, but had this almost like this world that I could escape to. I'm just going to put these down for a minute. The other thing that I have to say at that point was that I have a very active brain, and my brain had nothing to actually engage with. And then all of a sudden along came Dungeons and Dragons, and all of a sudden there were rules to remember, there were dungeons to create, there were hit points and stats and thacos and things like that to remember. And my brain was just like a sieve. No, not a sieve, a sponge. That's it. What got the right? It's very much like a sieve now. It was like a sponge. It really just absorbed everything. Anyway, I remember the guy saying to me, well, if you want to get into D&D, the basic set is available. Let's go into town and we'll buy it. And it was somewhere near Christmas, because I remember that it cost me £8.50. And I had an advertiser paper round, and I'd saved up. And I remember my mum saying, if you buy this, I'm not giving you any money for Christmas presents for your friends or anything like that. And I just had to have it. And it was a really strange occurrence for me, because I remember going home from school, and then Darryl and Stuart coming round and picking me up from my house and taking me into town at like 4 o'clock. And I was just thinking, wow, if I went into town when I was younger, it was always like 8:30 in the morning. And the fact that you could still go into town, and it was quite magical. And I went in and I bought the box set, and it cost me £8.50. £8.50. And in that box set, there was this book, the module, Keep on the Borderlands, and some dice. and my first set of dice that I'll have to find one day because I've still got them somewhere, my first ever dice set. And I actually, in the end, painted them and painted each of the number and varnished them. And I've got them somewhere. I'll have to find them. And I remember getting home totally excited, and Daryl took this out and said, no, you can't read that. That's a module. He was going to look at that and DM the first game for us. And yeah, I got this book. There's, as always, I'm not going to sort of like go through every single bit of it, but there are some things that I wanted to draw your eye to. And the first thing was the cover art. Okay, so this was on the front page as soon as you open the book. And I can safely say the number of times I sat trying to figure out the rule, what's happening in the rules there, what is that spell that the wizard is casting. You know, it had the dwarf here, and this is an elf and an archer and everything like that, and absolutely wonderful. Now, the other picture that really, really captivated me, and I must say it's very stereotypical, but this picture I thought was brilliant. This idea that people were imagining their characters and bringing them to life. And just, you can see that it was well loved. There's lots of crossing out and things like that. I obviously didn't agree with the optional the optional initiative rule, because I just like scribbled it out altogether. Now, the interesting thing is that we only had certain classes. Remember, we only had certain classes. There was no difference between a class and a race. You just had classes. And you can see how well loved this was, in the sense that, look, I've been through and actually circled the important stats, underlined everything, and then, you know, on the back as well, and this wonderful picture of the little halfling down there. And we only had the classes of clerics, dwarves, elves, fighters, halflings, magic users, and thieves. And that was it. That's all we had. We didn't have anything like a race and a class. It was just these races. And that literally was it. There was nothing else. Okay, and I actually remember in my teenage life actually looking at that picture over and over and over again. And I remember at one point thinking that this cross here, can you see that? I'm trying to move this one, belonged to the hooded figure behind. And it's not, it's actually the fighter's sword that I eventually came to realize. The other thing that we had were alignments, and I was passionate about alignments. And I always remember this picture describing them. You know, which one was good, which one was neutral, which one was chaotic, etc., which was fantastic. The equipment list, that was it. This was all the equipment. But the fact that clerics could only use non-edged weapons, which was brilliant. There were some examples of character sheets as well. And there was a huge amount of spells, etc. You can see here it gets rather battered and torn. Not too sure what happened there. It's all sort of like sellotaped together. Look, it's unbelievable. We had a whole load of monsters. And this was definitely one of my favorite monsters, the carrion crawler. I don't know if you remember that, which was excellent. A wonderful picture of the explanation of Dragon's Breath, which was absolutely super. I'm just sort of like flicking through. Interesting that the pixie and the rust monster was on the same page. And some spiders, etc. And the troglodyte. Wasn't that a cool monster? Absolutely unbelievable. And then it had a whole load of stuff about treasure and magical items, which I remember the potion of gaseous form, although I think I pronounced it gaseous form for a long time, which I'm sure is acceptable. And yeah, that's about it. I was just looking through. This was a piece like a reference sheet that you had, and because each class had different to hit rolls and things like that, that was all different. And there was a little adventure that came with it, which was called the Haunted Keep. Which I ran a few times, quite a few times. I do remember at one point I had created my own dungeon, and in the first room there was always a +1 axe or something like that, and every time I replayed it and went over and over and over again with it, it was very much a case that everybody knew there would be this +1 axe there. So this was Keep on the Borderlands, and I have to say that this is rather tattered and torn as well. But this was a wonderful adventure. This was the Caves of Chaos. Caves of Chaos. And I don't know if you can see, but I've actually put some extra doors and things on like that to see where you could go. There's a wonderful picture, and if you've seen the new trailer, the new D&D trailer with is it Chris Penning from Star Trek? There's an owl bear on that, and look, the Keep on the Borderlands introductory model for characters level 1 to 3. There is the owlbear there in all its glory. I have to say, I don't think I ever ran this whole dungeon as one dungeon. I don't think I ever did that. I think I might have dipped in and done little bits of it, but it really was a fantastic dungeon, and I think we ran it several times. So that's sort of like my basic rule book, and I apologize that it's in a little bit of a state. And I just want to take a pause here to say what great memories I have of basic D&D. I've actually got the companion box set, but never got the expert box set. I think that's right. There was a toy shop in the place where I live, and it was called Precious Preciouses, I think it was called. And that's where we got our D&D books from. And there was a little box down by the side of the counter that only we knew where it was. And we used to go and sit and flick through. There was a wonderful dungeon that I never actually bought, a module called Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, that I always wanted to play but never was able to. And I think it introduced things like weapons, like guns. And there was a wonderful table that would say something like you would roll it to see which way the gun was facing before you pulled a trigger, etc. And yeah, so really fond memories. But there's something else I wanted to show you. And I'm going to read something to you. It's like, listen with inwils. Because I found these as well. And I suddenly remembered how creative I was when I was in my teenage years. And how much I wanted to write and publish things and really, you know, produce something to share with people. And yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about next. And we'll look at it in the next video. Now, the reason I've said it like that is because I'm going to put a cut here in the live stream, so you won't hear this part, and you won't see me in the video taking a sip of coffee. So just before we move on, or before I show you my creativity at that age, please do remember that you can support the channel by becoming a member of the channel. You get some interesting perks when we're doing live streams here, including emojis, and so things like these little things that I've created already. Hopefully those have come up, and you also get some perks about loyalty badges, etc, etc. If you want to know anything else about joining the channel, the membership, then the join button is about down there. You get a little video of me explaining it to you. The super thanks button is also down there. It's a little dollar sign inside a heart. And yeah, just subscribing, liking, commenting really supports the channel as well. Okay then, so let's go back to probably inwils when he was 16, 17 or 18. Okay, rather long hair, greasy hair, quite spotty, quite unsure about himself, what he needed to do, where was his place in Earth, in the world, but knowing that he loved fancy role-playing games. And in order to do this, there was two little businesses I had. The first business I had is that I would paint miniature figures for people, and people would give me them, and then I would charge 50 pence per figure and to paint it for them. And I remember quite vividly sat on the dining room table with all my paints out, my cup of tea, working through it, painting, you know, getting everything done, and my mom being super supportive and saying, do you want something to eat, and seeing it as a business. And that was brilliant. I loved that. I love doing that. And I don't have the space to do it at the moment. But the other thing I did, and I'm going to show it to you now, is that I wrote a magazine. And I think in those days it was called a fanzine. And you have to remember, we haven't got computers yet. Computers are around, but you know, they're very expensive, and we don't have printers. Everything's on cassette. And so I actually produced this fanzine on my mom's old typewriter. And this was a fanzine called Animated Dead. Okay, now unfortunately I can't find issue 1. And I know this is issue 2 because it says at the top AD2. And what I used to do, I used to sell these for, I think they were 50 pence. And what I used to do is that I used to get carbon paper and do a whole load of bits of carbon paper and then bash my mom's typewriter as hard as I possibly could to actually make sure it went through all the paper. And I've got four episodes of them, and inside there was various things. There was the Sage's column. In this one, we talked about dispelling illusions and the letters page. There was a segment called Class Distinction when I talked about a specific class. There was a character spotlight when people in the groups could actually say, oh, this is my favorite character. Magical manufacture. You probably can tell now that I had a real thing for alliteration, which is about new magical items. Goblins, ghouls, and grillbees, which was new monsters. And I don't know if you can see it. The grillbees was actually had, it's just here, actually had a question mark next to it. And then this one had Call of Cthulhu game in it. And then I actually wrote some fiction called Marvo the Magician. And then there's advertisements and competitions. So, actually, let me just read to you the introduction. Dear reader, thank you for reading the first edition of Animate Dead. I hope you enjoyed reading it, and I hope that you will enjoy this next issue of Animate Dead. Due to production on a large scale, 9 to 10 copies each issue, I am unable to produce the attractive covers that you saw on the first copy. But I hope that this will not discourage you from buying future copies. I have no idea what the first copy looked like. I wish I could find it. It would be brilliant. There has been a great demand for copies of the first issue, and since it was handwritten, there is only one copy available for sale. I'm assuming it must have been passed round or something like that. Because of this, I've decided to say that it is a collector's item. This is why I don't have it anymore. Somebody else must have bought it, and it will be sold to the highest bidder. See, I was an entrepreneur even then. I must stress that this is the only copy of the first issue of Animate Dead, and no more will be produced. The money received from this sale, along with the rest of the money that is made from this magazine, is placed in a fund to be used for the upkeep of the D&D club. How nice was I? Nothing came to me. It all went to the group. As editor of this magazine, I will be unable to maintain a full magazine without you sending in articles to be published. These could be of any topic you please, and if your article is published, then you will get 5 pence off the magazine that it appears in. So get writing. This is out of interest. Writing is spelt with 2 T's. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of proofreading at this point. Because of the increase in size of the magazine, I am able to include a great range of topics within its pages. Therefore, you will see a lot of new sections in this magazine that have not appeared before. The Dungeon Designer is especially written for people who are designing dungeons and are planning to become DMs, Dungeon Masters. Being a DM myself and teaching myself how to DM, I should be able to solve a lot of your problems that new DMs face. Magical Manufacture give a variety of new magical items that have been sent into the magazine, and Goblins, Ghouls and Grillbees gives a whole range of new monsters to stock dungeons with. There will also be bi-monthly articles that will center on Traveller. Yes, see, Mr. Pickles, we were playing Traveller. RuneQuest, which is really interesting because RuneQuest 6 later became Mithras. Call of Cthulhu, which we all love, and Middle-earth. So Middle-earth was a game that was... It used a system called Rollmaster, and there was Rollmaster that I still got. You can just see it here. I still got that system. I still got Middle-earth as well, so they capitalized on that and made Middle-earth. And any other games that people play can be represented in the magazine if submitted to the article. As you can see, there's lots more to read as well as regular items, so I think it's really worth the... And then there's a blank. It says really worth the blank P. So obviously I hadn't decided that you have paid. Please, if you find that someone else wants to read your copy, tell them to buy their own. Happy adventuring, the editor. And that was it. That was the introduction to Animate Dead. So it's interesting. I haven't read that for ages. And it's interesting that the reason that I can't find Animate Dead episode 1 is that it was sold off. It was auctioned off. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting questions in here. Sage's column, the questions were, do assassins lose their thieves' abilities if they are carrying a shield? If a high-level ranger decides to stop being a ranger and becomes a fighter, does he lose his spells? And what magical items can an illusionist use? Some really good, questions there. In the early 80s, my older brother came home with about 15 copies, pages. Yeah, we all need... Yeah, I can imagine that. He must have been, have access to a photocopy or something like that. Brilliant. This is the class distinction that I wrote, and it starts off with a little bit of narrative, which is really interesting because I still like this sort of like approach. If you watch my Mithras rules videos, I often say, do you want to so, or where is this? And like a hook. And even when I was publishing Animate Dead at this age, 16, 17, 18, let's poison some daggers and creep up behind him. Oh, hi, Darth. Take... What's that profile name? Welcome, Darth. It's lovely to have you. Let's poison some daggers and creep up behind him and backstab him, said the thief. Certainly not, you common thief, replied the paladin, and gave a huge cry and ran into the room. Well, we definitely won't get surprised now, said the thief. Who brought that paladin along? But, I mean, I wrote, this is all typed out. The spelling is atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. But it's so fun looking back on it. I must say, I want to read something else to you in a second, just to finish off the stream. But it was interesting that one of the magazines actually had a segment in that said, wait for it, this is so funny, that actually had in it, I don't know if you can read it there, it says, oh, you won't be able to, it says, recent deaths in the D&D campaign. So obviously I was talking, you know, and interesting about characters who had died. Underneath it says, anyone who wants to place sincere wish in this part of the magazine is free to do so. I have no idea what I was talking about. No idea at all. Anyway, there was something else. There's two more things that I wanted to share with you. So I really like epic fantasy. I think it's so exciting. And one of the things that I really love is the idea of prophecy and the idea that, you know, there is a prophecy and then eventually somebody will meet that prophecy. And okay, so this is this was written by me, 16, 17 or 18-year-old, and it's called The Prophecy. Many of you might have heard me talking about a prophecy that my magic user wants to fulfill. So at this time, magic users were my favorite class, like Gandalf, etc. Well, the first time in history it's going to be made public by this magazine. So when you read it, if you think that any of your characters fill the ones mentioned, then write and let me know. The adventure will be in a form of a wilderness campaign, and any level character will be allowed to adventure. The prophecy comes in the form of a variety of passages from some ancient book, so there are large bits of the prophecy missing. This is what it says. And as the great battle of Pesh, obviously I was still struggling for adventurous vocabulary at this point. And as the great battle of Pesh was fought, the winged dukes of Aqua formed the almighty weapon that would solve the battle where law and chaos contended. As the weapon struck its mighty blow, the battle was resolved, and law and chaos were separated by unlimited space. But as this was done, the weapon shattered, and the pieces thrown to the wind which scattered them. So great were their powers that no one could destroy them. But fearing that the power that the completed weapon could have, the Wind Dukes made a prophecy, and this must be fulfilled to gain the almighty rod. These names, yeah, they are, aren't they? And these people must seek the rod, being born of common people, the fighter who fears everything and nothing, for he will gain his freedom. The dwarf that lives forever, for he will surely die. The magic user that was touched by the gods, since she will destroy the evil and gain the power. The cleric that bears the number of the beast, for he will have the decision to make that will determine the end. The thief with one hand will save the party and will pay the price of death. And finally, the neutral who believes, for he who disbelieves, for he will cause the party destruction, and finally riches. And for these the 7 parts will be given, and will conquer the evil that will fight them to the final battle. And so the prophecy will be completed, and the rod of 7 parts will be scattered once again. Now, I think that is pretty good. I really do like that, and I'm quite proud of it. I think in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons there was a magical item called the Rod of 7 Parts, and that's where it was made up. But I mean, right the way back there, it's amazing that I'm creating these ideas of prophecy, and it reminded me that recently in our Mithras campaign, if you've been listening in, we've had a new prophecy, haven't we? We've had a prophecy about the how to kill the Shahelia. And I just thought I'm just going to read it just so you can see the improvements. So there's the one for Shahelia was before the start of time existed, she was growing in strength, feeding off the greed of humans. She was massing a following that started to inflict great pain on the world. She was becoming unstoppable. But although she longed to be with the mortals, the elder gods decided that it was not to be. Her lust for human flesh, her desire for servants and followers, her need to inflict pain and suffering made her too vile, too corrupt. I've just had a thought, you know, I don't know why I'm reading it like that, because I can actually do this and you can see it, which won't be that exciting, but hopefully you can see it here. I'm just zooming in a bit of it. So you can see it here, the elder gods. If you remember, the elder gods banished her, but the elder gods are failing and new gods come into power. The humans worship these deities, and as the balance of power shifts, so does the walls of her prison. I really liked that sentence. I really like it. The new gods do not remember her deeds from long ago. They are not dedicated to keep her in the prison. As the elder gods strive to maintain their control over humans through their theists and holy places, they are relaxing their grip on the prison. And as their grip relaxed, so did the walls and restrictions. As their focus changed, the prison walls have failed. I always feel it should be a da 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 at that point. So I really like writing things like this. I really do. And I don't know if you remember, I can't show the other thing. Sorry, I can't show you it because it's got a part of the adventure on. And there was that idea, that poem that was saying how to actually destroy her, So yeah, very fond memories of me writing as a newbie. And there is just one more thing, if you don't mind, I know you don't mind, that I wanted to read for you. And this was part of my ongoing story that was called Marvo the Magician. The adventure continues. Sister Rebecca had made a fire and was busy preparing dinner while Bod, who was really a no, hang on. That's not mine. That's not my writing. That is somebody else's writing that did that episode. This is my writing. Sorry about that. Here we go. The adventure continues for our four adventurers: Bod the fighter, Sister Rebecca, a cleric, an elven thief, and our hero, Marvo the magician. The adventure continues. What are we going to do? Asked Marvo, trying desperately to remember his spell. We attack soon, snorted Bod. Oh, I was afraid of that, said Marvo. The 5 orcs had found the party's footprints and were looking about nervously. They slowly drew their weapons. There, I've spelt wrong, just out of interest, and started to search the bushes. Attack! The fighter screamed and launched into combat. Oh dear, it looks like it's going to be half orc, Marvo heard. Oh dear, it looks like it's going to be half orc, Marvo heard Sister Rebecca say as she and the thief jumped out the shadow and bushes on the opposite side of the road. Bod had already killed one of the 3 orcs that had attacked them and was starting on the other 2, demolishing them slowly. Marvo fumbled with his dagger just in case one got past the 2 orcs. One of the 2 orcs got past Bod. Hello, Chunky, smiled Sister Rebecca as the orc that faced her. You're going to be one big hit with me, she said as she smashed the orc over the head with her mace. Go on, she shouted to Marvo. Go smash an orc. The thief was carefully dodging the orc's blow, but he soon got bored with it and slit the orc's throat. There's a little bit more. Bear with. Bear with. You're a cut above the rest. I don't know where I got these. You're a cut above the rest, Rebecca shouted to the elf. Meanwhile, Bod was finishing killing his orcs, and Marvo decided that it was safe enough for him to come out the bushes. Well, that's that, he said. Shall we go? We go now, Bod said. The party resumed marching order and started down the road again. He's a bit thick, isn't he? Asked Rebecca to Marvo. He is a bit, I suppose, replied Marvo. The thief was darting in and out of the bushes. Rebecca watched him for a while, then spoke to Marvo again. I wish he wouldn't dive about like that. He's never still enough to do anything serious with. Like what? Asked Marvo, realizing his mistake immediately. Rebecca giggled and then looked at Marvo more closely. How old are you? She asked. 24, he replied. Well, maybe you'll get to know about the birds and the bees someday, she continued to giggle. Marvo went red and looked at the sky. It was getting dark, and Marvo knew that they would soon have to find a place to camp. It's getting dark, commented Marvo. Good. Perhaps I can teach you about the birds and bees, Rebecca said. I'm sorry. I really do apologize. And then there was this climatic bit at the end that said, will Marvo get initiated into the entomologist's paradise? What? I'm just surprised at this age that I knew what an entomologist was. Or will Rebecca make it with the elf? Find out in next month's edition of End Animate Dead. Don't miss it. Order your issue now. And that was the fan fiction that I was writing down there. It always worries me when the chat is suddenly quiet. I suddenly think, oh no, I've pushed it a little bit too far this time. Anyway, you can imagine what the next episode was like. But I have to say, you know, looking back, this book has a lot to answer for. Okay, this book has a lot to answer for. It is actually responsible for making new friends. It's responsible for being mocked. It's been responsible for being labeled a devil worshipper. Yeah, really, a devil worshipper. It has filled a multitude of hours for me, creating new things, writing, sharing, being a dungeon master and DMing and creating new adventure. It certainly has been the start of a very long journey. And looking back, even on the difficult times, I think it's been a time that I really have enjoyed. And it's got a lot to answer for, this book, but the majority of it, if not all, is all very positive and has allowed me to actually interact and talk to people, and absolutely fantastic. Now, just to let you know, just before I go, because I try to hit the hour, if you are interested in what my storytelling is like now, then you can go over to my Ko-fi RPG shop over there. It's something that I'm branching out on, and there's some of my fiction in here. For example, these are free. You can pay something if you wish. From the Depths of Undisturbed Sleep and Security Drone and Replenishing Memories. They're all available. Let me just go over, make me small, and then you can see it. So this is the site. These are encounter sheets that you can download. This is the free one, so just you can see what you actually get. You get sort of like a one-sided information about an encounter. I'm just going to come back to this. I'll go back to it in a moment. I do apologize, and you might be thinking, why is he charging for this? This is not fair. It's not worth it. I figure out that each one takes me about an hour to do. So I'm charging £1.99 for an hour's work. And just so you know what you get, so you can see in the encounter, you always get, it's only on one sheet of A4 paper. You get a preamble giving you some ideas about how to implement the encounter. You get a short narrative that you can use to introduce the encounter or put it into your game and things like that. You get a series of events that can happen and what you actually can do with them. And then finally, at the bottom, you get a bit of an outro, okay? You always get that with every single one of them. And as you can see, I'm adding to them all the time. So this is one about escorting merchants around a town. This is an obnoxious cartographer. This is an encounter about a broken wagon, attack of the swarm, so forth and so on. So yeah, if you're interested in any of those, then please do have a look. It is supporting me and my work and trying to, you know, bring what I love doing with the role playing and the live streaming, etc. You know, trying to make some income from that so I can keep justifying you know, this way of existence. Okay, and don't forget you can support the channel by liking, commenting, or subscribing. Part of this video will be available after the live stream, but some of it I actually delete. So anything that I was talking about at the beginning, right at the beginning, that just goes. I think it's a bargain as well, Duff. I really do. They're slowly going down in price because every time nobody buys one, I sort of like think, are they overpriced? What should I do? So anyway, we'll see. Yeah, so don't forget liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing what I do here would be brilliant. Don't forget that all the ways to support me are down in the comments. And if you're a Mithras fan, don't forget to join the Discord and to have a listen to the podcast Mithras Matters. And that is available on all well-known podcasting platforms. Okay, thank you so much for coming along and spending the evening, the hour with me. I hope it's made you feel all warm and fuzzy listening to fond memories, and thank you for sharing your memories as well. And please continue to do so in the comments later on or on the Tapper Talk forums, etc. It's been lovely spending the hour with you. Normally this will be in future on a Monday night. We normally do our role-playing session on Saturday night that you can see live on Twitch, 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock BST time. That's us at twitch.tv/inwils. Come along and see us there. And don't forget the channel has a variety of actual plays and Gibbering GM series and also Mithras rules. So indulge yourself. Just go and watch one after another. You won't be disappointed. Okay, no worries, Carl. Thank you very much for coming along. Until next time, Look after yourself. Stay safe. Stay healthy. But most importantly, you stay positive. And I'll see you next time on the whatever I'm going to call these streams. See you later. Thanks for coming out, people. Bye. Bye-bye.